We're about to go through a federal election here in Australia this weekend, and I've had a lot of Aussies that come up to me and say that they disagree with their democratic obligation to vote, aka you are legally required to vote here. So let's go over some of the difference between the Australian voting system and the shit show that is in the US. In America, voting is like going to the gym. Everybody talks about doing it, but only 60% actually show up to the election. Meanwhile, Aussies hit a 90% turnout without even trying, because you get slapped with a fine if you don't vote. Voting day here is on a Saturday. Yeah, a Saturday. A day when most people aren't even working. I mean, how convenient is that? Whereas Americans prefer the challenge of Tuesday voting, because nothing says democracy like squeezing in civic duty between your morning meeting and picking up the kids from school. Now let's talk about the actual voting system. Let's break this down in very simple terms. In Australia, you can rank your candidates from hell yes to I'd rather crap in my hands and clap than have this person in office. It's your way of telling the government, I want this person as my first choice, but if they don't win, use my vote for my second candidate instead of just throwing it out in the bin. Meanwhile, in America, there's this absolute crapshoot system called the Electoral College, where you can win the popular vote by millions and yet still lose the election. Because apparently votes count more than others in certain areas, depending on these arbitrarily drawn state lines that you live within. And if your favorite candidate doesn't actually have a realistic shot at winning, congratulations, your vote actually doesn't count for anything. It's democracy with a fun twist of your voice might not matter at all. This is why America's first past the post system is a democratic dumpster fire. Picture you've got three candidates. Progressive gets 34%, the centrist gets 33%, and the conservative gets 33% too. Who wins? Well, the progressive with just a measly 34%, even though 66% of the voters would rather have an alternative candidate. It essentially declares that someone is the winner of the race when 2/3 of the other people don't actually want that person to win. When voting isn't mandatory, only the angriest and most extreme voters show up, not the moderates. They're staying at home watching Netflix and watching the dumpster fire unfold, while conspiracy theorists and rage monsters just decide the future. With the US voting system, politicians don't need to appeal to all citizens. They just need their rabid base to actually bother to vote. This is why we see them getting more extreme, more divisive at every single election, and it's just getting worse and worse. Meanwhile, here in Australia, politicians have to appeal to everyone, including that apathetic middle who'd rather be at the beach, because they also have to vote. What's really interesting about this election is that Gen Z, now this year in particular in Australia, Gen Z and millennials make up the majority of voters. This means that young folks and people of my age could actually swing the election towards independents and Greens instead of a usual liberal Labor duopoly. You know what happens when young people become the majority voting bloc in America? Absolutely nothing, because quite a few of them are not registered to vote. And they believe there's no point in actually voting because look at what happened in this last election. The system is so rigged that even when younger generations show up, the Electoral College and gerrymandering ensure that votes matter less. Let's not forget that here in Australia, there is an independent electoral commission that draws the district boundaries as well. I mean, it sounds really boring, but it's fair. In the US, politicians choose the districts, not the other way around. That's what gerrymandering is, and it seems to be a national pastime in the US. So anyone who is complaining about voting this weekend, next time you're forced to spend 15 minutes at your local school on a Saturday every few years, remember just how terrible your voting system is. Aussies just don't understand how good you've got it. And believe me when I say that your vote actually means something here. Make it count. Now, excuse me while I go and beg a few of my friends back in the US to register and vote. Bye!